Picture this, a civics education where you never learn the differences between America's political parties, never learn how to evaluate candidates, never conduct a mock election. Isn't that fundamental to understanding American politics? Some educators are raising red flags about proposed changes to how civics are taught in Florida schools. Changes they say could remove critical thinking and add bias.
I don't think they should tell us what to think.
The teaching of American history and government should be factual and objective.
Let's see what's brewing. Hi, I'm Jenna Bourne, and I'm an investigative reporter at 10 Tampa Bay. If you're new here, welcome to our caffeine-fueled, homemade deep dive into issues that matter to you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Yeah, I think we can all agree that learning how our government works is pretty important. Evie Worsley says it's easy to see why.
It helps you give a say in how the country is ran.
She's 12 and just finished her first civics class this past school year in 7th grade at Bartow Middle. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been vocal about his administration's efforts to expand civics education for students like Evie.
Knowing civics.
I don't want politicized civics.
We're going to be laser focused on developing the best possible civics instruction standards.
So he signed this bill into law in 2019, instructing the Department of Education to review and rewrite those standards. In the new proposed standards they came up with this year, most of the changes raising eyebrows among educators happened in 7th grade, so we're going to focus our attention there.
I'll understand more whenever I'm voting, what the Democrats and Republicans are, who they are.
Not necessarily. In the current draft of the revised civic standards, students like Evie won't learn that anymore. This current standard requiring that 7th graders learn to identify America's current political parties and illustrate their ideas about government would be eliminated. We wanted to ask the K-12 chancellor at the Florida Department of Education about that. So we showed up to a standards listening tour stop in Kissimmee last week. With just a few days' notice, it was a pretty small crowd in that big auditorium. So that standard, which required them to compare political parties, was eliminated. Isn't that fundamental to understanding American politics?
So when we look at the different standards that are put up for draft review, it's important to remember that they're not finalized. So if a standard is being consideration to be eliminated, it may not be just being eliminated from 7th grade. It may be being moved to 6th grade. It may be moved to 8th grade.
I did check to see if that standard was just moved to a different grade, and it wasn't. It's just been eliminated.
Okay, that's feedback we'd be happy to take to our work groups.
Another standard that would get cut: 7th graders will not learn to evaluate candidates for political office by analyzing their qualifications, experience, issue-based platforms, debates, and political ads. Nope. Instead, they'll only learn to identify the constitutional qualifications required to hold office. And 7th graders wouldn't conduct a mock election anymore. That standard would be replaced with one requiring them to compare the election and voting process at the community, local, state, and federal levels.
We live in a hotly tested political climate right now. People are on edge about a lot of things, and so I can understand not wanting to use actual candidates that are running for president or governor or something like that, but I think for students to get the experience of conducting a mock election is still an important one, even if we use a candidate A and a candidate B, or even if we use it with people in our school and our student councils or our student governments.
That's Catherine Goebel-Smith. She's a social studies curriculum specialist at Polk County Public Schools. She told Chancellor Jacob Oliva she's concerned the proposed changes decrease critical thinking and add bias.
There is some issue with the objectivity of some of the standards. They give students foregone conclusions.
Let's take a look at what she means. Some of the new proposed standards shift from teaching students to compare different ways of doing things to teaching them that the American way is the best way. So instead of the current standard of learning to compare different forms of government, 7th graders will be taught to analyze the advantages of the United States constitutional republic to other forms of government. And instead of learning to compare parliamentary, federal, confederal, and unitary systems of government, 7th graders would have to explain the advantages of a federal system of government over other systems. The new proposed standards would also add a new benchmark requiring 7th graders to explain the advantages of capitalism and a free market system over government-controlled economic systems like socialism and communism. Another brand new benchmark would require 7th grade students to explain why the Electoral College is essential to the United States constitutional republic.
I don't think they should tell us what to think. I think they should tell us the information and give us the chance to think what we want to think.
Any good teacher will tell you that part of our job is to play devil's advocate and to have students look at both sides of any issue. So any social studies teacher would say, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages?
And it's not just Goebbels-Smith raising questions about this. In an April 9th workshop, several commenters expressed concerns about nationalism and bias in the proposed standards. One commenter said, "It is our job as educators to teach children how to think, not what to think." And several people questioned who created the revisions to civics standards. If it was an expert panel, what are the names of the individuals or organizations on the panel? Great question. We started asking that same question to the Florida Department of Education back in April, but after nearly 2 months and no names, I asked Chancellor Oliva in person. Who specifically makes up those work groups?
It's reflective of teachers across the state of Florida. So we have elementary, middle, and high school teachers from all over the state. And we also ask some national stakeholders to review their work.
Is there anywhere the public can find the names of the people who are on these expert work groups?
If it's not on our website, we'd be happy to add this to our website.
It's
not a secret.
Yeah, well, and I understand, sir, and we've been asking the Department of Education for 2 months to identify for us who's actually a part of it.
This is the first I've ever been asked, so we'd be happy to follow up with you.
We got this list of names the next day. They're teachers and curriculum experts from around Florida, plus someone the department identifies as a charter school rep. But who are these national stakeholders that review their work? The Department of Education named 3: the Bill of Rights Institute, Hillsdale College, and the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship. The Bill of Rights Institute is based in Virginia, and tax records show they receive funding from the Koch family, known for supporting libertarian and conservative causes. The institute did not respond to our questions, but its website says it does not take partisan positions. Hillsdale College is a private Christian school in Michigan. It has ties to former President Trump's former education secretary, Betsy DeVos, according to the Washington Post, Politico, and The Guardian. It also receives funding from the Charles Koch Foundation. The Florida Center for Joint Citizenship is a nonpartisan partnership between the University of Florida and the University of Central Florida that's been supporting civics education in the state for more than a decade. Both of those state universities also get funding from the Charles Koch Foundation. The Department of Education says it's going to take feedback from the public into consideration and post the final version of its proposed new civic standards by the end of June. They'll present those to the State Board of Education in July. We've got the link where you can check those out in the video description below. Thanks for watching What's Brewing. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and I'll see you next time.